The draft may be over, but we're just getting started. Let's assess this class and where do these guys rank on the Guardians prospect lists.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use that code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB, for a first deposit match up to $100. I want to thank everyone who's joined us over the past few days. We have like almost 20,000 views, I think, on our stream / yesterday's episode. So that is amazing. I think I saw we had like 25,000 total views yesterday across nows and everything else. If you missed draft content, I did a now on every single player selected. Every player gets a minute. You can go check that out. You can go rewatch our streams for in-depth. You can find out where I talk about obscure science fiction movies in today's stream. Find out that Brian from, what's the website? The Brian Heminger, I probably said his name from, is that we share a similar obscure sci-fi movie we love. So that was random find today. I want to thank just everyone. It's been a spectacular few days. And thank Justin, because this is like our third podcast of the night. We had we did top 50 prospects. We just didn't record it. But for those who don't know me, I am Jeff Ellis, the host of Locked On Guardians. Have been since the beginning of this network, formerly a draft and prospect analyst nationally at Scout 24/7, as well as your 107th favorite blogger at every Cleveland sports blog that has existed or ever will exist.
You're number one in my prospect rankings, Jeff. You always have been. You always will be. I'm Justin Latta, the other co-host of this podcast, and thank you all for tuning in this week. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system all the way back since 2007, since before some of these draft picks might have been born, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know.
Yep.
We'll see.
Yep.
But it was a fun class. Thank you guys for listening. And we're here to talk about this draft class. And we're not going to go, like Jeff said, he did a minute on everybody that Cleveland selected today, and actually everybody in general. He did all the nows for all 21 players. So go back and check those out. I don't think we're going to have time today to talk about every pick from around 11 to 20. So what we're going to do is just kind of talk about our favorites from day 3, some notes, some things we discovered from, just talking to Paul Gillespie, the Guardians vice president of scouting. And then we'll get into just assessing this class as a whole, how we feel about it. And then we'll talk maybe some money. And then we'll talk about where these guys rank on our prospect list. So Jeff, who are some of your favorites on day 3? I think we have kind of the same favorites, but why don't you go ahead and start? Who's your standouts for day 3?
It's the undrafted free agent class. No, there's no one from the undrafted free agent class. There probably won't be any. Listen, day 3 is a situation where it's maybe not as exciting because they spent all of it. Like I talked about yesterday's show, I thought they had spent all of it, and it looks like they spent all of it. The 2 hitters at the top, Garrett Howe and Bennett Thompson, are like guys they would have taken a year ago. You can go look at CJ Kayfus and Cooper Ingle, who had not great 90th percentile exit velocities, but had great contact rates and didn't chase. That Garrett Howe's data is actually pretty impressive. If they can help that guy find some more velocity, this guy, if you're listening right now, you can't see his scorecard, but we have it up. I mean, everything is good for him. So Garrett Howe is
except that could be low, yeah.
Yeah, he had the 3rd lowest chase rate in college baseball last year. He's fun. Bennett Thompson, who is a catcher. I was talking with my buddy Taylor Blake Ward, who goes, I think Bennett Thompson could play any position on the diamond. He goes, I think he could play second base if he wanted. So it's just a really athletic. He's not the biggest guy, not as strong of a hitter as Howe. And then, I'm going to go ahead and say Cam Walty is a guy that I kind of was trying to convince you about. Like his 4-seamer generated a lot of chase. His slider did as well. There's some good data on the curveball. It has some positives. And then the big thing is like his FIP and his XFIP are different. For those who don't know, that's a fielding independent pitching. It's a good indicator stat, and XFIP normalizes home run rates. That's why I don't use it. I don't want that. His FIP is much lower because this dude had a pretty low home run rate relative to where everyone was in baseball. And he was doing that in Arizona, which is a place that no one does that. So, why did I really like Kyle Bradish in his draft year? Why was I'm not saying he's Kyle Bradish. Kyle Bradish was huge, but why was I higher on Kyle Bradish than the field that year? Because he didn't give up a lot of home runs and hard hits in a place that everyone gives up home runs and hard hits. Kudos to the new coach. I believe Arizona had a new coach this year, and it's like Clark Candiotti and Jackson Kent, and all these guys excelled. It was a really good group there. I can't remember where he came from, but their coach this year did a really good job. And, I think there might be more on the bone with him, even though he's not the biggest kid.
I agree with you. Cam Walty is really interesting. I mean, Howe's interesting. The thing I'll say about the data on Garrett Howe is like he played in a very small conference. So, you're going to see he hasn't even played in the Cape. If he played in the Cape, I would have felt a lot better, but I bet you a lot of other teams would have felt the same way. So, I mean, and we, you said Taylor thinks he can play shortstop, and Bennett. I do like Bennett Thompson too. There's some good data on Bennett Thompson. He played in a better conference, so I feel better about where he could be, and I think he's got good defensive skills as well. I mean, Ryan Cesarini is interesting because there's some real juice in his bat as compared to everybody else on this list. If I can pull up Ryan Cesarini here, the right one. So another small conference guy. The only thing is with Cesarini is he could play all three outfield spots. He's a 70 runner, according to at least the multiple guys that we talked to, or at least we know in the scouting community who we trust. There's a little more juice in the bat. He has better exit velocities than everybody else. The only thing is he has not faced any velocity because he played in the smallest conference. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that his expected stats against velocity 94 and up is 0. So I don't think he faced any. If he did, it was very minimal. So there's no good data on that. He's also kind of passive too. So there's some issues there. But, as Jeff said in the live stream, day 3 is for the scouts. You're going out and you're finding guys with like 1 or 2 tools, and you're hoping you can maybe develop a third and figure something out. And they took guys with the good base skills they like. So it's interesting. And we'll see what happens to Cesarini. I'm really interested in the two really guys that need a lot of development. That's Jacob Remley from Hawaii.
He would have been next for me to talk about, honestly.
Yeah, he's a kid who I think is he barely 18? He's 18, but he's 18. He just turned 18 in May.
Yeah, and everyone I talked to about him was like, I didn't have him as a pitcher ever, because he's 6'6" and he has big exit velos. He was viewed almost universally as a third baseman. So it's a little bit fascinating that they went the other way here. He's not viewed as a pitcher to most people.
Yeah, he's 6'6", and the delivery's really wonky. Like, it looks really ugly. Like, you and I talked about how Sullivan and Mobley and Oki all have like very, like, Dowdy's the only guy with a delivery that looks fluid. Everybody else needs work. Jacob Remley's his delivery is really ugly, and it's going to need some work. But he throws already in the low 90s. He's 6'6". I think he's got a decent changeup already, at least as far as what you would concern his level at, not necessarily like major league changeup, but like from where he is. And Paul Gillespie also told us he's new to pitching. He hasn't been pitching that long because, again, most people thought he'd be a hitter, and he comes from Hawaii, so he probably hasn't been developed that much. So I think there's a great chance, probably a very like 90% chance that Remley never even gets past AA. But there's a lot of untapped potential there, so I'm really interested in that. He was the only high school kid they took today. I'll be curious to see what they give him. He's only committed to San Jose State, so I got a feeling he's going to sign.
I think he's a 150. I think everyone's a 150 today, unless they're less. I think there's some that are less. Paul Gillespie and I use the exact same expressions to describe him, which is he's a ball of clay that you can develop.
He said that. He said that too. And then Logan McGuire is one that really intrigues me. So Georgia Tech from this year. But McGuire is the one that's bounced around, right? He's been to a couple of different colleges. No, McGuire is only Georgia Tech.
He's been there. Cam Schulte bounced around. Cam Schulte's also at 3 years. This is his Cam Schulte. The nice thing for guys like Cam Schulte and Jacob Riley is they're pitching right now, so they don't have to ramp back up. Cam Schulte, this is his 3rd year in the Cape in a row. I haven't seen that. And
before. He's played for 3 different colleges too. Yeah. On top of that,
and he's a funky. He brings the funk.
Schulte's interesting. Yeah, Schulte's another. If you're a deep prospect, man, he's another Alaska Abney. But McGuire is interesting because McGuire missed some bats at Georgia Tech. He was a good control pitcher, but he had Tommy John 2023. He had a shoulder injury. So I'd like to see what happens with McGuire when he's healthy, because I think there's some stuff there as well. And then I'm with you. I think Walty is really interesting. I think he's only 6 foot tall. He doesn't throw that hard, but he has good carry on his fastball. He's got some secondaries that are worth looking at. And he succeeded in an environment he shouldn't have. And honestly, that whole Arizona pitching staff was interesting this year. Like Jackson Kent, we talked about him multiple times. Jackson Kent was interesting. Yeah. Clark Candiotti was interesting. They've been doing something down there that's interesting. And I don't know that,
like I said, I think they have a new coach this year. I believe, if nothing else, they have a new pitching coach. I know they made a change, and they're doing good work in Arizona.
Yeah. So, remember a couple of years ago, the situation with Florida where they took the Florida guys and And then some people were like, "Oh, they love Florida pitchers. They're so good." And it was like, no, because they're not developing well. Because that point went over a lot of people's head. It's I feel like it's almost maybe a little bit the reverse on Arizona, because all three of those guys succeeded, like you said, in an environment they shouldn't have succeeded in. So I wonder like how much is left to develop there, because maybe Arizona did a good job with them. But if they didn't, if Cleveland sees more there, then Walty might be like the next, maybe another Trenton Denholm or something. You know what I mean? Like I think there's some intrigue there. So interesting day 3. Again, a lot of more pitchers. They took 3 position players. With one of these guys becomes a big leaguer, it's a win, right? Like if one of these guys makes it to the majors, you've got to win, because day 2 is so hard. By the way, what's with I messaged our friend on the West Coast. What's with the Oregon guys in the 13th round? Last year was Brisanahan in the 13th round, Oregon commit. This year in the 13th round, Oregon catcher.
Did you message our friend with the organization, or our friend who covers such things?
In the organization.
Okay. Yeah. He had a great draft.
All he said was nice.
Nice.
He did. Yeah. The Pacific Northwest this year cleaned up. I mean, you had Bazana, you had I'm sorry, wrong Aiden. But you had
him, and I don't know Thompson.
If he covers. Does he cover British Columbia? I don't know if he does, but he got Thompson.
Probably. I mean, British Columbia is on the other coast. Isn't British Columbia? I'm bad.
I thought it was west. I could be wrong. Don't ask me for geography on that one, but yeah, a couple good shots on the West Coast. He did really good last year on the West Coast. So nice.
You're right.
Nice
You're right. No, it's that Vancouver. Yeah, because British Columbia is where Vancouver is. Duh, Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm dumb.
Oh yeah, I don't know if that's his area or not. But,
I bet it is. I bet it is.
That West Coast, and last year was Ralphie. I know Ralphie's not his guy, but that West Coast has really cleaned up for Cleveland. They like those guys. Okay, we're going to take a step back and we're going to look at the class as a whole. We're going to assess how we think Cleveland did. We're going to talk a little bit about money and where we think things. I think some things have changed today after we saw a price for one of the prep pitchers, and then we're going to get into where these guys fall into our rankings later on today's show. So stick around for all that.
But first, let's talk about SupplyHouse. SupplyHouse has been great for us. They're enjoying us, and we enjoy having them with us. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled traders. SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is a reliable way to order plumbing, h-vac, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in business, and talk to a real person every time. Pros in skilled trades can get competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from a free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, h-vac, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. Next, I am going to tell you about our good friends at PrizePicks. And I know I'm supposed to talk about how they are, the daily fantasy, but I can't do that because they added season totals. This is fun. I like how I can do the more or less feature that is with all of them, but for the rest of the year. More or less, 15.5 home runs for Ohtani. I'm not sure. But the best one on all of these, you have to go down here. Nicky Lopez, 0.5, more or less. Is Nicky Lopez going to hit 1 home run before the end of the year? That is a really fun debate to have. You can also do pitcher strikeouts. The only one I saw for Cleveland is stolen bases. 10.5 for Jose, more or less, with 67 games to go. I don't know. That's something we'd have to debate. You can head over to PrizePicks, download the app, use the promo code LOCKEDON for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is download the app, go to the website, use the code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, all one word, for first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Checked out the Locked On Sports Today feed over on YouTube. No screaming, no yelling. Lots of local opinions from hosts that know your team the best. Check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and on the Amazon Fire TV channels app, Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. And we are covering your team, the Guardians, on their whole class as a whole today. So, Jeff, the only bonus total I think we've seen publicly, maybe you've seen more than
Ryan
me,
Sloan, right?
Because I think Ryan Sloan. So Ryan Sloan got $3 million at what was it, pick 55, I think is where he was at. So he
Yeah,
was
which
below
explains
Doughty.
why Cleveland didn't get him, because we're not projecting anyone outside of Baz to get $3 million.
Yeah. So you think Doughty comes in at slot now, is what you're saying, right?
Maybe a little bit over. Maybe he gets like 100 or 2. I mean, with my math yesterday, which if we pull it up, it's still saved
here,
them.
yeah.
I didn't use it today at all. I should have, but this gave them this gave you essentially
2.5 yesterday.
I gave him 2.5, which is technically like under slot, really, because it's a little more than 2.5 at slot. But this gives them 180,000 to spread amongst these players, because I think that's where it all went. I do honestly think the way this draft went down is, at the end of the day, they took all the money they'd pre-committed and called Mobley and said, "Hey, Chase, this is what we have left. Take it or leave it." And he goes, "I'll take it." Like that. I mean, because sometimes guys,
probably change his mind.
It's like guys will change mind, and they said the guys changed mind in our meeting. Listen, there's a really terrible Twitter account. It was like, I think they're only going to get one of the. And it's like they literally told us in meeting they're signing everyone. Everyone is getting signed. That was told to us verbatim. So don't trust fake accounts that don't show their names and don't tell you who they are. The same way you don't want to trust some random dude in the middle of nowhere who tells you that a trade's going to happen. Trust real media. Have some, media literacy. It's fun. You can have fun and run with like the idea of a trade and talk about trades. Like, you and I both appreciate Lamole. Like that's what he does. That's his kind of his shtick, is to have fun and run with ideas, right? But he's never out there being the guy, I got a trade rumor, or I've heard this guy's going number one. Like, let's just take a second. And I always want to stress the idea of that media literacy, because I don't even know the exact name of that account. I quote tweeted, and just like someone was clearly selling bad information to get likes and looks. And I dealt with that again with that fake Shane Bieber rumor. So it's like when that stuff flies open, it's like these are people who are clout chasing. Don't let them chase clout. Trust good sourcing.
If you have to claim you're an insider and you have to really say all these things to say you're an insider, you're probably not. You don't want to listen to those people. So
yeah, the math says, like, I mean, maybe he gets a little over, maybe Schlesinger gets less. Maybe Major gets less. I don't know. It's where
he is having Tommy John, so I think that does devalue him a little bit.
But I mean, I already had him getting below what slot would have been at 250. So they're up against it, but they drafted everyone with that knowledge. It's like they had deals with most of these guys in place. And it with someone like so what happens is you have your deal with Bazana, exactly what your pool is, then you kind of see how things, because there's a chance Dowie goes before, like they don't have, but as they're about 5-10 picks out, they're calling his advisor, we can offer this, and the invite, there's probably some back and forth. They've already set kind of what the line is. They know this is a guy they like, so they already know. So it might even be like, hey,
range.
Yeah. They might even be like, we've talked, we can meet that. If he's there at 36, is that staying the same? And then they'd be like, yeah. And then when they see Cozart's getting in there, probably about 5 picks out, they're doing a final check-in about the number. But that check-in occurs before the pick gets announced, I guarantee you.
It's got to be crazy is the other side of that. Like, and Cleveland's got, you've got Gillespie, and you've got Ethan Purser, and you've got the area scouts, and you've got the AGMs, and you got Antonetti. And I know Antonetti probably stays out of the way after the Bazana thing and all that, but like you've got multiple guys to handle these phone calls. So you might have one guy calling Doughty, maybe one guy's calling Okie, maybe one guy's calling Chase Mobley, one guy's calling maybe Ryan Sloan just to see if they can get him or not, all those kind of things. Imagine though being like the player and the advisor, because I don't know how many advisors, especially prep kids, how many advisors can they have? Because like you said, if teams are doing their due diligence 5 picks out to figure things out, imagine how many phone calls are coming in at that time, right? Like you might be on the phone with Cleveland, you might have the Cubs and the Mariners all calling at the same time. Like I don't know how they handle that. That's got maybe these agencies have assistants that they can do that with, but that just sounds really wild to me. When it comes to grading this class, I think we'll say you and I both stay away from grades. Number one, because we don't know the money yet. I think we have to wait for the money to come in to figure it out. But I think we have an idea of the money, which we will by the end of the month. But the other thing I want to say when you're looking at this class is 2 things. I think you can only grade the class based on what is available. Like you can sit there and say, we don't know what this class is going to look like in 5 years from now. If you want to look and see like how you feel about the class right now, you can only judge it based on the available pool. You can't judge it based on who you want them to take in terms of type or need, people who want to draft for need, all that kind of stuff. You can only judge the class based on what the pool of available players was to them. And yep, like that's what Jeff wrote in his article about assessing this class as a whole when it comes to hitters and judging them against their peers. You can only judge this class against what was available at the time they were picking and what the class has as a whole has to offer. My assessment here is this. And you said it yesterday, the class, the best group in this class, it was college hitting, but it was very clustered at the top because after the top 10, the college hitters had a huge drop off, a lot of question marks. After that, it was the high school pitching, and it wasn't like your typical like high end high school pitching. It was a lot of, guys that are high risk, high reward pitching. And that was where the money was to be spent. Like we talked about it yesterday. The high school hitting class was not good. There was some, 5-6 type starters from the college pitching range, but you weren't going to spend big money on college pitching because there just wasn't any money to be spent there because you would have overspent. They had to spend this $19 million they had. And the only place to really do it that made sense was the high school pitching. And 5 years from now, one of these high school pitchers might be good and the rest might all flame out. And maybe that best one is Oki and he's a reliever. I don't know. But at the time looking at this right now, they got 4 high school pitchers that are very highly thought of across the board. That's where they chose to dig their money into because that was where the most upside was offered in this class. They had the most money to spend. They had to do it. So I'm giving them credit for doing that. I can't judge them against players that weren't available and talent that just wasn't available in this pool. You know what I mean? Like we want more safety in college pitching, but the reality is you could have taken some more for balance, but you weren't spending big money there because those guys weren't big money. Otherwise you just would have overspent, right?
Yeah. You're just going to, again, people get obsessed with, I want a power bat. I want a right-handed bat. And that's not how this works. Like, just like any other sport, you fail as a manager when you get away from best player available. We're all Clevelanders. All we've done is grown up. If you're a Cleveland fan, your whole life has been obsessed with the draft. The one thing we know is that when you get away from best player available, you start failing. And that's what they did. And the other thing that's more so in baseball than any other sport is it's best players available who fit your model and approach. They also need guys who are going to buy in and be able to do the things that they're going to ask of them. If there's someone out there who's a little more pig-headed and those guys exist, then that guy isn't going to work and it's going to be a bad marriage.
Agreed. Yeah, you have to pick what's there and you have to stick with what you can develop. And what Cleveland develops well is it's not high school pitching. They don't develop high school pitching very well, but if you take guys that you believe are going to buy in and are coachable and are smart, it gives you the best chance. And this is what they did. They feel like gives them the best chance to develop a good draft class. You can only spend the money you have now and can only take who's available. So, all right, when we come back, we will discuss more about where these guys fall into our prospect rankings. We did a lot of that off air, so I don't know how much we have left to debate, but we got time to do it. So we will get into that next. eBay Motors, you guys know what it is. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships. Also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers like Emmanuel Class A, getting that save in the All-Star game. Roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights that are flashy like Emmanuel Class A's glove, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. They have over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time. So you don't need to make a risky draft pick every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all of the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP, the Travis Bazana of your draft, and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Guardians finally back in action on Friday, Jeff. Not Thursday, not Wednesday, but Friday. Check out all that action on SiriusXM. Just search Guardians on your app. They host the Padres. Hopefully we'll have some trade rumors flying by the time that comes around. Remember, Jeff, after the 2018 All-Star game, Cleveland traded for Brad Hand. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but sometimes it happens. You get
Brad Hand's available.
we need a reliever. I keep saying we need a reliever. Call
He's
Brad.
available.
I don't know. I will say the All-Star game's over. The draft is over. You got all the GMs that were in Texas and we're watching the game. Maybe some conversations happened. We'll talk about that tomorrow a little bit about trades and all that kind of stuff in the trade deadline ahead. But for right now, let's talk more prospects because we're still focused on this draft. I enjoyed the All-Star game. I know Jeff didn't watch it because Jeff is the All-Star game hater of everybody.
I had a kid melting down. I didn't even have an opportunity. I would have rather watched the All-Star game than have my 6-year-old yelling at me. So,
fair enough.
It wasn't even as much my
Stephen
hate.
Kwan walked. Yeah. Stephen Kwan walked. David Fry singled to run in. Clase got the save. It was fun. All right, prospects. So, Jeff, you and I had about we should have recorded it, but
almost an hour, I would say.
It was like an hour conversation before we started recording this about where these guys rank. Obviously, for both of us, Travis Spazana is number one. And then we talked about, okay, which other guys kind of slot in. We were doing a top 30. Like we both decided on our top 10 or top 11 pretty easily. Like for me, Braylon Dowdy slotted in at 8 for me. I had Joe Yoki at 11. We were pretty much in lockstep there. After that, though, it got really difficult, like in terms of who slots in. I don't want to really get into too much of who moved up, who moved down. We can talk about that a little bit, but I'll just say overall, I have, 5? Do I have 5? I have 2 in the top 10. I have 4 in the top 20, and I have 5 in the top 25 from this class. And I have 1, 2, 3 more from the class that made it in my top 50.
Let's see. In my final ranks here, I've got 2 in the top 10. 5 in the top 20, and then 6 in the top 30 from the class.
I think we have the same 6 of the top 30.
I mean, there's only 6. So, it's like I guess here's the bigger question. Who is the 7th rated player in this class? Is it Garrett Howe? It might be Garrett Howe.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who's the 7th player?
Yeah.
I have Garrett Howe as the 7th player in this class.
As I say, it's probably like Howe and Thompson are 7 and 8 from today. And then maybe Schlesinger is 9. And then if I were to guess at 10,
I have Schlesinger after Sullivan. So Rafe Schlesinger is my 7th player in this class.
Okay, so he's your 7. So it goes 7 / I can see that. It's like Schlesinger is Schlesinger, and then Howe and Bennett are 8 and 9, and 10 is probably Cerritos. If I had to place a bet.
Yeah, the outfielder, Cesarini. Yeah, he's the outfielder.
That's
probably nobody.
And then after that, it's like you're kind of debating
Walty,
the rest. But
maybe
Walty, Major,
or
you can debate.
Caden Favors. Yeah, Caden Favors.
Yeah, but I think the top 10 slots in pretty easily, which is interesting because there's quite a few guys who we think are going to get, maybe not quite a few, but I think Major will make more than the last 3 names on that list, and I think there's a good chance that I'm blanking right now that Zazik gets more. If we were doing pure ceiling, Zazik would be in the top 10. But that's the thing. That's why it's kind of a fun class. There's a lot of ceiling, and one of the other big takeaways too, I'll say, is like look around baseball. What got the Yankees Juan Soto? Pitching,
high school pitching.
Yeah, well, I mean, just developed pitching. What got
developed pitching? Yeah,
what got the Padres?
Almost none were college. Yeah.
What got the Padres? Dylan Cease, pitching. Like, if this team, for everyone out there who's mad that they didn't draft a right-handed power bat, well, and I'm going to go back to this argument I've made all year. You just need a good hitter. You don't. Who cares, right or left-handed? Good hitters hit pitching. End of story. It doesn't matter where they hit from. But to acquire a good hitter, you need pitching. Pitching is what teams want.
Yeah, everything.
Chicago would probably right now take. Like, I know the big talk is they want Spencer Jones from New York to get Crochet. But I think the reason they want that is because New York's traded away all their pitching. They don't have any left. So it's like, if you have pitching, and Cleveland is great at development, it's a bit of a lull right now, but having all of this pitching, having a giant infusion of pitching is just going to help them. And also maybe opens things up to flip a Messick, as a secondary or tertiary piece. You and I are kind of,
you just
Clemmy
brought in a bunch of high school arms.
I mean,
if someone believes in Clemmy, he could be a tertiary piece. I don't think he's a front of the.
I think
But I
that
think you
chance
could
is a
flip him.
secondary or tertiary piece. But yeah,
That's what I meant,
like
secondary. Yeah.
yeah. I think it's like those guys. Like you and I are very our debates on like the order of Webb, Peterson, and Messick. It's at the same time. This allows you to consider one of them. It opens it up. And the one thing I'll say is I think we ended up with the same 30 guys. It is a pretty clear-cut top 30 right now. Now, there are probably others who don't agree with us.
We have one guy. We had one guy we disagreed on. It's a very controversial guy.
Oh, yeah, there is one guy. And we had a big disagreement on this, and that's Daniel Espino.
I was screaming F-bombs at you. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it was just nonstop. I mean, you should have heard the things he called my mother. It was hard. I was in tears.
No, we disagreed on Daniel Espino. We disagree on.
Yeah.
I have Daniel Espino 31 on my list right now.
I've got him 12. And I can understand your point of view. In defense of myself, my whole view is if so there's 3 guys who get hurt. If Chase DeLauder didn't have injury issues, he wouldn't be number 1 in this system to me. He'd probably be number 2, but he wouldn't be number 1. If George Valera didn't have injury issues, he'd probably be graduated, but he also wouldn't be number 1. He'd probably be like 4 or 5 because there are some limits there. If Daniel Espino didn't have injury issues, again, he'd probably graduated, but if he was still down, if he was down here for whatever reason, he'd be ahead of Bazana for me. Like if he is on, he's the best pitching prospect in baseball, and I couldn't move him down more. Like he's got one more year. Remember, I had him like number 2 in the offseason. Which is funny.
I did too. No, I was with you. I was the season.
I got called the Espino hater for the longest time because I was like, he's gonna get hurt, and now I'm reluctant. And I lived through Adam Miller. That was like the beginning of my writing career was at the Adam Miller situation. So I've been through that, but I'm like, no, he's gonna turn. It's gonna be like Adrian Peterson in football, who was hurt all the time at Oklahoma, right? And then managed to have those great years where he was healthy, and then he got hurt and came. Like I don't know. It's gonna be Zadrunas Ilgauskas, and he's gonna be the longest game. I don't know. It's like the upside is so high on him. I refuse to give up that ghost quite yet. But I also understand if people think I'm being a Pollyanna or not. I know I just said that word wrong, but it's okay.
Pollyanna. Yeah. My big thing is my rankings often are a lot about safety, about guys I feel like are actually going to make it to the majors and have some, not even necessarily like high ceiling. Like obviously Bazana checks all the boxes, but like I have Manzardo 2 and Brito 3 because I think I have a high degree of probability those guys are going to be average regulars at the next level. And the next thing I consider is availability. So like I have DeLauder at 6 because he's always hurt, and Valera's way down on my list because he's always hurt. And I had to drop Espino because he's going to go 3 years not throwing a pitch. And it's like, you don't even know what he's going to look like on the other side of these surgeries. He might not even be the same pitcher he was before. If he is, then great. He's a top 5 prospect in baseball. No doubt. So it's just hard to assess. So yeah, Cozart's in there for me, Sullivan, Schlesinger. A lot more to talk about on that tomorrow. So tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about second half storylines, trade deadline hopes. We'll get into some, how things might work going into the second half of the season, what the Guardians need to do, and we'll talk maybe a little more prospect stuff as well.
Yeah, it's been a fun week. We'll try to maybe give some time to some of the guys you can get some time to, but we want to thank you all for, again, your continued fantastic support throughout this process. Thank you all. You have been fantastic. Make sure to check out all the videos if you have not. Rate and review. We are so close to 3,000. We are like less than 50 away. So get us there. Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.